Hi friends, welcome to my channel. Today we will discuss about build and pattern. In Java, we have three different types of patterns are there: creational, structural, and behavioral patterns. And builder pattern is one of the pattern from those of creational design pattern. Now, first discuss about the theoretical part and then go hands-on. What actually a build and pattern? How we use this build and pattern? Where do we use? When do we use this build and pattern? And the steps to build this build and pattern. Right, as told you, this builder pattern is used to create a objects. Right, the name itself, it is a builder pattern. Means it is a creation pattern. What is creating? It is creating. It is used to create, to build objects. This pattern helps you to create or to build objects. Alternatively, another way we can say it is used, it will help us to construct complex objects. Build and pattern. When do we use build and pattern? As everyone knows, in Java, we have immutable objects. Build and pattern should be used when we want to construct, to build different immutable objects using the same object building process, which means we can create an object with different ways with the same creation process. No confusion. If any confusion, please no worry. I will show you during hands-on. Right. Its main, especially use is when you want to create an object with lots of configuration options. Right. What lots of configurations are there? For example, let's take a real-time example of this figure seen here. Now, we want to construct a house. What to do? A house is a house with common parameters, means with common configurations are there. A house has a walls, right? It contains a windows, it contains a main door, right? It contains electricity and some minimum, with minimum features, the house will be built. There are certain different houses are there. Some house maintain a separate garage door, and some houses having swimming pool without garage, and some house they arrange fancy status statues, and some house they will arrange a garden around their houses. Because here the same object is having different configurations, right? The same house here, the house is a house, but they have a different options are there. Someone have a swimming pool, some don't have a swimming pool, but another things are there. But there are certain things which are common. If you look at this, all these houses, first part is same, right? Additional feature is here, this house contains a garage, and this house contains a fancy statues, and this house surrounded with the garden, and this also same as this house, and but this have additionally swimming pool. Because here the same object we are constructing in different way with the different types of configurations, with the different number of configurations. You can take another house also which contains swimming pool as well as garage, right? Like that. So here the one object is behaving, constructing with the different types of configurations. This is one of the example. How do we do this? This pattern allows us for step-by-step creation of complex object with using the correct sequence of actions. Right? Its main aim is to separate the construction of a complex object from its representational, so that same construction process can create with multiple different representations. As look at the same construction process, but different options are there. Why it is introduced? This build-on pattern was mainly introduced to solve one of the problems with the factory and the abstract design patterns. If you go back to my previous videos, you have this factory and abstract design pattern that have this. When object contains a lot of attributes, there's more number of attributes, right? It is difficult to construct the object. This builder design pattern come into picture to solve all these problems. Okay, what are the main issues with the factory and design pattern is that too many arguments to pass from the client program to the factory or abstract pattern, then it can be error prone, because most of the time what we think, the types of the arguments and the number of arguments are more, and also it is difficult to maintain the order, right? As let's take an example of a constructor, right? In Java, the constructor. If I have a constructor, n number of constructor, 1 argument, 2 argument, 3 argument, okay. If I have more arguments to the constructor, the way pass the values to the constructor should be order, and it expects all the parameters are there. Some you cannot remember what exactly to pass that. If you don't have that all the values, then if you have the only few fields, right, it is difficult. Some parameters might be optional, right? Some parameters are not optional. So here, this factory and abstract pattern force us to send all the parameters, irrespective of optional or non-optional. If we have a parameters values, then we send it. Otherwise, we send it as a null. If the object is very heavy, then it creation also will become a complex, right? That all complexity will be a part of factory classes. That makes a lot of confusion to the end user to implement that. So to solve these issues, the providing a constructor, the large number of parameters, required parameters, we have a different setter methods to the optional parameter, which means to solve these issues, build-on pattern has come into picture. No matter how many number of parameters you have, and what are required parameters and what are optional parameters. The problem with this approach is that the object state will be inconsistent unless all the attributes set explicitly. Right. So the build-on pattern solves the issue with large number of option parameters, make that it inconsistent by providing a way to build the object the step by step. What is that step by step of creating an object? Please don't confuse. We will have one good example which make you easily understand that. Once we are done that example, then you can not have even a single question on that, right? Which means we have to build an object step by step, and we have a method finally which will actually return the final representation of the object. So this all about the builder design pattern theory. In simple terms, you can say that builder design pattern help us to build a complex object step by step with optional parameters and mandate parameters, right? In software development cycle, if you see that you already know the constructors, right? Sometimes if you are calling a constructor, you may or may not have all the values always, right? So those known values are there, unknown values, means not known values will go as null. But you don't want that to send it as a still null, but you still expect the object to be created. How you do that? We don't have that one. This helps with the help of builder design pattern. We can solve with the help of design pattern. So any pattern to create, to structure, to build any pattern, we have some steps that need to be followed. Let's look at the steps to build the design pattern. Instead of discussing this theory, entire theory, let's do step by step. What actually you need that first, let's have one class. What is that class? let's take any employee class now. What in employee class, I have a fields of 6 fields are there. Now let's make as mandate field. Okay, all these fields, 3 fields, I will make it as mandate, and the rest of the fields are optional for me. Age, mobile, address are optional fields. Now you clear? The first 3 fields are mandate field and the last 3 fields are optional field. So we need to have first employee class first. Then let's have a toString method. I will tell you why I have written this. This is not required, it's not mandatory, but I have written this to represent your object, to display that all the fields that are we are passing as a part of object creation. I will show you that later, no worry. Now, as you know that if you have a final variables, then you don't have any setter methods, which means this, you just think of this, this is a immutable class. As I told you, right, to construct the immutable objects of different types, which means the here your object is immutable when if you have all the variables in your class are final, the private constructor, and with no set methods. If you have all the variables are final, obviously if you try to add a setter method, then definitely you will get a compile time exception. So that is the rule of immutable class. See, you have all the variables final humans, then you will have the get methods. Then first of all, you need to create a static nested class. Then what is our second step? The first step I have done. The next step is we'll have a static nested class. You know what is a nested class? Class within the inside the class. We have this, there is a static class that have created public static. The moment you mark this class as static, then it is a static class. And it is a nested class. If you see this class is inside my employee class. Now give some name, it's a meaning name. Now this is a builder, it is going to build our object, it is going to construct our object of type employee. For employee, it is going to build an object. Say that's the reason, give employee builder. Then what I'm saying here, and then copy all the arguments from the outer class to the builder class, which means this, here I have 6 number of fields are there. The same 6 number of fields, I copied it here. What is the next step I'm saying? Then I told already we should have to follow the naming convention. I told, right, if a class his name is hello, then the builder class should be named as hello builder. Then why we have to follow the naming convention? It is easily to remember. It helps us to easily recognize that. So the employee name, so the builder class name is employee builder. Right? It is not like our own naming conventions, right? Method naming conventions, Java naming conventions, right? Just accept that. Now, what is the next step then? Java builder class should have a public constructor with all the required attributes as parameters. What I said, this should have a public constructor with all the requirements, mandate parameters. As told you, the first 3 parameters are mandate parameters, means required parameters. So then that is the reason I have created a public constructor with all the 3 mandate or required parameters. Then what is the next step? Then the builder class should have the methods to set the optional parameters and return the same builder object after setting the optional attribute, which means these are all the required parameters and the rest 3 are optional parameters. So for that, what I'm saying is construct a set method which return the builder object of this with the optional parameter, and finally it returns the builder object with the optional parameter. For example, now I have 3 fields, must and should, means you must have all these 3 fields, because I'm saying these are all mandatory fields. You cannot ignore this one because we already decided I always have these 3 fields. Always means all these are fields are mandatory fields. Sometimes I may have these 3 fields, or this field is there, sometimes this is there, sometimes this will be there. In addition to these fields in my object, I pass this age also. Sometimes I have this three fields and this along with the mobile number or maybe with the address, which means first it construct the object with these three fields. Then if you pass this optional parameter, then what it say, it consider this parameter also to the current object, and return this means it is the instance of this current. You know the meaning of this, right? It refers to the current class object. Means this return, this means what it is returning, this one of type employee builder object. Means this optional value attribute will be included with your initially constructed object. No confusion. If no confuse, please don't confuse. If we have a confuse, I will show you how this is constructing, how this is coming up. Okay, the same way I'm constructing another method, mobile, and there is one more method, sorry, then more attribute called address. So we have one public constructor with all the mandate fields and another constructors and with all the optional parameters or attribute. Then what I'm saying, the final step is to build the object. That the builder class will return the object needed by a user or a client programmer. For this, we will have a provide constructor in the class with the builder class as arguments. What is that saying? That we have done this one. After all doing this stuff, we have a builder, build employee object. So what I'm doing here, then whatever the values it is considered and it says you have the consolidated, you have the final object. That object I'm sending to my employee class. What it is this? It represents the state of the object that is constructed as a part of values that we have supplied. Then finally return the employee object. So what it is taking? This is the object of employee builder. If you look at this and go and share, then builder. Then this builder holds the values. What values you have set during the object construction, those values will be appear here and represent your object state as a part of toString. Okay. If you have any little confusion, please be patient with me. I will show that how it works. Now go to the employee main class. Now I have created two different objects. Now in the first object, what we do first, this does not there. Okay, forget about this. Now it is as good as like creating our object new employee. But here what we are trying employee for, I am with the help of employee builder, I am passing this one. In general, what we do with the constructor, we are passing arguments 1, 2, 3, something so on, right? If it is not there, if one of the parameter is not, then we will be sending null or empty string according to the data type, right? So that is the case. Now here with the builder pattern, you no need to do that. It is exactly as this first part of syntax is same. Then employee with the builder class, when we are building that, just see that one. Employee builder, then it call this one. Then it first it expect the mandate parameters. That's called these are called the mandate parameters. In the first state, I'm sending all these mandate parameters, right? ID, the first name, last name, and then say I'm calling the build employee, which means it is returning the object with the mandate or required parameters. Then finally you will get this object. Another case is that now, okay, remove this. Now what I'm doing now, as right now we have 3 mandate parameters. These 3 parameters, make sure we always have to supply this. Now I'm adding additional optional parameters like age and 38. Now this time I don't want any mobile number. I don't have any mobile number. I don't know about the address. Then I just say with this parameters, with this configuration, please build my object. That's all. Now I'm done with that. So this returns the object with the different configuration. Now I create one more class, employee 2. Then what do we do? Then this time I will have a different employee dot. You just call the builder class nested class inside. Now I pass this 1, 2, 4. It's a different ID. Then I pass the different name is Okay, now I am done with my mandate parameters. Okay, what do you do now? The next thing is, next I know that mobile. I don't know the age that guy, and I know the mobile. That's something died or 600. Okay, I know the mobile number. Later, I know the address also. Okay, address. I say this. Okay, done. Now it has to construct. It has to build employee object. Now I'm done this. Okay, just print this employee to object 2. Then print this how it is constructed. Okay, now I have constructed 3 different objects with multiple or different configurations. How this is behaving, how this builder pattern is creating with this supplied input. Okay, I will show you with the debugging. Okay, now see, run your application in the debug mode, and now the first thing is, then it comes here, right? It will start from here. When you say this, first it will call your public constructor with the optional, sorry, mandate parameter. See, this guy is calling and it is constructing then object. Finally it go back because he doesn't know that, because this is only expected at the first. Now it is built that. When we say this, then see, this guy is building that. Means this, you will look at this one, how it is returning this returning then object with the parameters that we supplied. Now we see we have 6 number of parameters, but we supplied only 3: ID, first name, last name, and mobile is address is nothing. Then what it is, after constructing with this mandate parameter, then what I'm saying, I'm saying build object, build employee object, means then it return the object with the supplied input. Then you could see the final response as here. This one, you see this, all the values that we supplied is displayed here. The next step, what we see, this time it execute additional step. What is that? Go inside. Now this is as well, it execute this public constructor with 3 mandate arguments. Also it goes to age as an additional option, right? You see this additional attribute, then this guy is executed, and this object, if you see initially how this object, right, now it is already assigned. Initially this object does not contain this age. After assigning this value, this object is refreshed with the new field. Now we pass only age, that's it. With this addition, in addition to these 3 fields, I also pass this attribute as age. Then it go back. Okay, now what is do with these 4 parameters? Please return the object, please build the object. Then you say what this guy is returning, this guy is returning with the 4 parameters: ID, first name, last name, age. Similarly, another method, another configuration, another object is, in addition to this mandate required values, I'm sending mobile and address. This time what I do, this time first it execute this public constructor with 3 mandate values. Then this time this will not execute this one because I don't know the age of the, I don't have that attribute. Then I have the mobile number and the address. That's the reason it comes in to execute this guy and this guy. Finally it returns the object, which means it build the object, means it comes here and return. Let's see now how it goes. See, this guy entered here. As told you, this guy will execute first with this, and then it says that you have one more. See, now it is not executing this age. Age is not there because I have not passed, I have not supplied that attribute input value. And this guy return this, means you see now ID, first name, last name, mobile, and address, age is not there. It has to execute one more constructor with this attribute address, then this gets failed. Now it go here and next it come to the address. See, every time when it checks this, which value it is, which input, which attribute we are passing, then it's keep executing those constructor and update that. If you look at this now, this is still address is null. Dumben execute this line, this object, the current object gets reflected. You see, it is showing in the red line, which means this is the latest value. Then it is done with all the values that we supplied. And finally, it returns an employee object with the parameters that we passed it. You see this one? What we have? ID, first name, last name. Age I have not supplied here. If we don't have age, that is the reason. And mobile and address is there. So this is how the build run pattern help us to build, to construct your object, complex object with step by step, but simple to complex object. It is not always, it will not force you to pass all the values as a mandatory. Then depend on the values available, then depend on the configuration data available, then the object will be constructed and that will represent and display to the end user. So no confusion, just 3 simple steps. Remember, let's your class, right, with some values, but don't think that I don't have the values as mandate values. That's never be there. You must have the mandate values in your application. Otherwise, there is no code, no form, no data without any mandate values. Okay, let's create a constructor. First, in inner class, static inner class, follow the naming conventions. Copy all these fields to the inner class. Let's have a public constructor with the mandate values and another constructor with the optional values. Then finally, it is simple, as good as how what we are doing for normal creation of object. We are passing here as something like ID comma something so on like that, multiple parameters. Instead that we are passing the object that is constructed according to our input parameters, according to our configuration or according to the data availability. That object will be sent to this employee as a constructor, and this builder have all the fields holding, then this will be populated to your outer class. Then you can go ahead to the next step according to your expectations. This is how you can pass that. Right? This is the main class, right? This is how we can build, can construct the same object with the different number of attribute, different values that we call as a different types of configurations. This is all about the builder pattern. In the next video, I will come up with the another design patterns. Okay, as now, thank you, bye.